She twerked on her disabled patients and was dumb enough to showcase it on her social media. This guy was despicable enough to put a hole in a convenience store worker over a dispute about gloves while making a pizza. This evil, toxic couple decided to try and take out one of her friends just because he seemed like a threat. And this fake business guru just essentially took money from anyone around him to spend on a lavish lifestyle. Who are some of the most despicable and heartless criminals? Let's find out, starting with number 6. Disable social media, please. Lucretia Cormasa Koyan's story is another example of why social media might be one of the worst things to happen since doctors were telling people that smoking was healthy. The 19-year-old Georgia woman was arrested after disturbing videos surfaced showing her dancing provocatively over disabled men in what appeared to be a care setting. These videos, which spread rapidly across TikTok and other platforms, outraged pretty much everyone who saw them and led to an investigation by the Loganville Police Department. The woman responsible for bringing attention to this case is Daphne, also known as the Queen of Accountability. She's a social media sleuth dedicated to exposing wrongdoing, and when she came across the footage, she took immediate action. She contacted the police, provided them with Koyan's social media details, and helped ensure that law enforcement intervened. Thanks to her efforts, Koyan was arrested and charged with felony exploitation of a disabled person. Koyan had allegedly been using vulnerable individuals for social media engagement, humiliating them for likes and shares. In one video, she placed an unidentified object in a disabled man's mouth, while in another, she danced over a man in a wheelchair. These acts weren't just inappropriate, they were exploitative, violating the dignity of people who couldn't defend themselves. Authorities are investigating Koyan's possible employment in the healthcare industry, including reports that she worked for SNL Healthcare LLC. While her exact role and credentials haven't been confirmed, police are looking into how she was able to access the disabled individuals in her videos. Reporters attempted to contact SNL Healthcare LLC for clarification, but received no response. Koyan has since attempted to defend herself on TikTok, dismissing the backlash by claiming the videos were misunderstood and that angles played a big part. Like it just looked like she was exploiting disabled people because of angles. Of course, her response only fueled more outrage, with many pointing out that, angles or not, she was still exploiting disabled people and doing it in a setting where they should have been safe. The victims have since been placed under proper care, and the legal system will determine Koyan's fate. She was arrested by the Loganville Police Department and charged with one felony count of exploitation of a disabled person. She has since been released on bail. As of the release of this video, the investigation is ongoing, with authorities reviewing additional charges that may be warranted. Thanks to Daphne, the Queen of Accountability, justice is now in motion. It's a weird time that we live in where we actually have to tell people to not do this kind of thing on social media, right? We made a joke about doctors smoking earlier since it's now seen as absurd, but it does make you think. What will future generations say when they look back at us 50 years from now and how toxic we were with social media? Are they going to look at us like we look at those doctors, smoking while they were delivering babies, and be like, what were you guys thinking? Honestly, we hope so. Number 5, glove dispute. Some scammers spend years crafting intricate frauds, stealing from family, or targeting the vulnerable. And then there's Charles Leggett, a man so unbelievably dumb that he turned a minor argument into a crime that instantly put him behind bars. Mainly because he essentially confessed on the spot. Leggett, 38, entered a Milwaukee convenience store, Action Food and Liquor, to order a pizza. A convenience store wouldn't be our first choice when going to get a pizza, but whatever. Maybe there wasn't a Costco or a Little Caesars nearby or something. Anyway, Leggett ordered his convenience store pizza, but when he thought the cook wasn't wearing gloves while making his food, he completely lost his mind. Instead of just asking for a refund or, leaving, he got into it with the cashier, Jamil Owais. And boy, got into it. I mean, he pulled out a firearm, reached over the counter, and ended Oasis's life in a single senseless act. The entire incident was caught on high-quality surveillance footage. His face, his car, even the license plate. He might as well have posed for a mugshot before he left. And if that wasn't bad enough, when police caught up with him later, he basically just told them everything. Once in custody, Leggett admitted he was upset about the gloves, admitting he argued with Oase, admitted he did what he did, and admitted he ran off afterward. He even confirmed that the firearm police found was his. The whole case wrapped up in one confession, because this guy couldn't even keep his mouth shut long enough to get a lawyer. But here's the most tragic part of the whole incident. The cook was wearing gloves. So Leggett ended someone's life over a misunderstanding and ruined his own life in the process. As of the release of this video, Leggett remains in custody at the Milwaukee County Jail on a $200,000 bond. If convicted, he faces up to 75 years in prison. It's refreshing that Leggett owned up to what he did instead of making excuses, but dude, at least get a lawyer first. Let this be a reminder. When you make a choice that can't be undone, you had better be sure, because in real life, there's no redo button. Leggett jumped to conclusions, and someone lost their life because of it. And a family lost someone that they'll never get back. Number 4. The conniving, jabbing doctor. Dr. Thomas Kwan, a 53-year-old general practitioner, disguised himself as a nurse and injected his mother's partner with a toxin, all in a desperate bid to control an inheritance. But as investigators unraveled his scheme, they discovered an obsession with poisons that made it seem like this was only the start. The crime unfolded as Kwan posed as a community nurse named Raj Patel. He arrived at Patrick O'Hara's home under the guise of giving a COVID booster shot. The deception was pretty good. Kwan wore a face mask, a wig, and even tanned his skin to sell the disguise. Really, as disguises go, this seems like one of the better ones we've seen. O'Hara, 71, had no reason to suspect foul play. But the moment the needle entered his arm, a searing pain spread through his body. Kwan reassured him this was normal, then left. Hours later, O'Hara's condition worsened. He developed necrotizing fasciitis, a flesh-eating infection that nearly cost him his life. Doctors were at first baffled by O'Hara's symptoms, and it wasn't until investigators looked into Kwan that the truth unraveled. Kwan had meticulously planned everything out, forging medical letters to gain entry and even booking a hotel under a fake name the night before. And why did he do this? Pure greed. He was apparently furious that his mother's will granted O'Hara a share of her home. Police later discovered a shocking collection of poisons, manuals, and even castor beans, ingredients for making ricin. Kwan's obsession with toxins had been years in the making. Though O'Hara survived, the psychological and physical scars remain. As of the release of this video, Kwan was sentenced to over 31 years in prison. It's strange that he would so completely violate his oath, though, and not out of desperation, but over something as petty as an inheritance. As a doctor, he didn't even need the house, which begs the question, given his obsession with poisons, was this really about greed or just an excuse? Was this going to be the start of something more severe? Number 3. The promise of buried treasure. Richard Bradley Jr., a serial, well, you know it usually comes after that, one of those guys, preyed on his victim's desire for easy money using a simple yet effective scheme, promising to dig up some buried gold in the wilderness. It was a scam built on trust, one that turned for the worst for anyone who believed him. Bradley's victims all had one thing in common. They had just recently come into money. Emilio Maturin, a 36-year-old man, was the first known target in 2019. Maturin's girlfriend recalled overhearing Bradley's enticing offer. Help dig up some stolen gold. Initially skeptical, Maturin eventually agreed, bringing $15,000 in cash and a bunch of illegal substances with him. He was never seen alive again. When his girlfriend tracked his phone to Game Farm Park, she drove there but got scared and left without searching further. Maybe it was instinct, Or maybe she didn't want to get involved given the amount of illegal substances Maturin had on him. Whatever the reason, she didn't call the police until 2 weeks later. And by then, Bradley was long gone. Nearly 2 years later, Bradley struck again. This time, he lured a father and son, Michael Goman, 59, and Vance Lakey, 31. Goman had just received a large inheritance. Their bodies were later found dumped near an unmaintained road. Their vehicle burned after Bradley allegedly paid someone to torch it. Then came Brandy Blake, a 44-year-old woman who had recently won $20,000 at a casino. Bradley convinced her he needed help selling gold from a robbery. They left a hotel together, but only Bradley returned. Her body was later discovered in a shallow grave, just 30 feet from the location where Maturin's remains were eventually identified. Bradley was first caught in 2019 when police found Emilio Maturin's abandoned BMW. When they tried to stop the driver, Bradley, he fled, leading to a car and foot chase that ended in his arrest. But with no sign of Maturin, just his BMW, police only had enough to charge him with fleeing. It wasn't until 2021, when Brandy Blake's shallow grave was discovered, that the case took a turn. Near her remains, detectives found 3 human ribs. DNA testing later confirmed they belonged to Maturin, linking Bradley to his disappearance. Initially charged in 2021 for Blake's case, Bradley remained in jail. It wasn't until late 2023 that prosecutors formally charged him in connection with Maturin, Goman, and Lakey. Had he not been stopped when he was, it's a guarantee the body count would have continued growing. Number 2. The romantic rival. Dion Ramlagan thought he was meeting up with a friend to talk. He had no idea he was walking into a dangerous trap. Betrayed by someone he trusted, he barely escaped with his life, while the 2 people plotting against him, Ariana Gajraj, a former honor student, and her jealous low-life boyfriend, Brandon Perella, ended up behind bars after their plan failed. Dion Ramlagan thought he was meeting with Ariana Gajraj for a supportive conversation about her troubled relationship. She told him she was struggling with her on and off boyfriend Brandon Perella and needed someone to talk to. Ramlagan had no idea that Gajraj had just recently reconciled with Perella and that their meeting was a setup. As they sat together, Gajraj kept Ramlagan engaged in conversation while secretly sending her location to Perella. The plan was already in motion. Perella would soon arrive and ambush Ramlagan. In the weeks leading up to the night, Perella had been sending Ramlagan threatening messages, accusing him of being involved with Gajraj and viewing him as a threat to the relationship, which he probably was. Police later recovered texts filled with insults and threats, making it clear that Perella wanted Ramlagan out of the picture. Gajraj, despite her past friendship with Ramlagan, was willing to help carry out the plan, catering to her boyfriend's insecurities. Text messages between Gajraj and Perella later revealed how carefully they plotted everything, and Perella made it clear that Ramlagan wasn't supposed to survive the encounter. While Ramlagan was sitting in his car waiting for Gajraj, Perella showed up with a firearm and unloaded multiple rounds at Ramlagan's car in a ruthless attempt to end his life. 13 holes riddled his vehicle, and additional rounds struck a work truck and mailbox nearby. Despite the ambush, Ramlagan managed to throw his car in reverse and get out of there, reaching safety and reporting the crime. The betrayal in this case is as cold as it is surprising. Ariana Gajraj had a reputation as a bright and well-liked girl, yet she chose to set up an ambush for a friend who may have simply been trying to support her. Whether she took advantage of those feelings or simply didn't care, she led him straight into a trap for the sake of her reckless, jealous boyfriend. As of the release of this video, Gajraj and Perella remain behind bars awaiting trial. In the end, their actions prove that the most heartless betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from people you trust. And if Perella saw Ramlagan as such a threat that he was willing to end the guy's life over it, maybe he should have asked himself why that possibility might even exist in the first place. Number 1. The Alpha Business Guru. In a scam that left families drained and desperate, Utah businessman Jeremiah Evans, better known as the Bull, persuaded hundreds of investors, including friends and relatives, to pour their savings into his company, Alpha Influence LLC. Promising financial freedom through an Amazon drop shipping business, Evans and his associates took in nearly $21 million between 2019 and 2022. But instead of delivering on his lofty claims, he left his investors empty-handed, their supposed businesses either getting shut down or were never profitable to begin with. As reported by Meg Walter and Kyle Dunphy of Deseret, complaints against Evans started piling up shortly after his flashy self-improvement event, AlphaCon, in early 2022. Investors were lured in with promises of passive income, often putting up $40,000 or more, only to receive silence when their businesses failed to generate revenue. Many discovered too late that Amazon had strict policies against the type of drop shipping Evans' company promoted. A business model where sellers list products they don't own, purchasing them from a third-party supplier only after a sale is made, resulting in their accounts being shut down. Evans leveraged his online persona, a brash entrepreneur with a fleet of luxury cars and a larger-than-life social media presence, to convince clients that his system worked. He claimed that anyone could follow in his footsteps, but in reality, most of the money went straight into his own pockets in commissions for his salespeople. He even paid for a glowing Forbes article to boost his credibility, further convincing investors that his operation was legitimate. One investor, a dentist from Draper, realized he had been scammed when Alpha Influence suddenly sold his Amazon store to another company, demanding an additional $25,000 to continue operations. By the time he tried to dispute the charges, the window for credit card disputes had already passed. Others faced the same fate, losing tens of thousands of dollars without any recourse. Despite mounting evidence of fraud, Evans continued to brand himself as a financial expert, securing endorsements from media personalities. However, as more victims came forward, legal action became inevitable. Over 50 complaints were filed with Utah's Division of Consumer Protection, detailing how Evans promised guaranteed returns, failed to disclose Amazon's strict drop shipping policies, and cut off communication once stores were shut down. Some victims even took out loans based on misleading financial coaching from Evans' team, leading to a class action lawsuit. In the end, Evans' empire collapsed. He ultimately pleaded guilty to securities fraud and money laundering, admitting he knowingly misled investors. As of this video's release, he has defrauded 530 investors of nearly $21 million and is currently awaiting sentencing. Scams don't always come wrapped in obvious red flags. Evans used flashy marketing, influencer endorsements, and even a paid Forbes article to appear legitimate, proving that credibility can be bought. Victims were lured in with promises of passive income, but guaranteed returns, vague business models, and upfront payments with no refund protection were clear red flags. The lesson? Look beyond the hype, question unrealistic claims, and remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Click to watch one of these next videos.